أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So this is week 2 for Surah Abasa. This came in revelation order right after Surah An-Najm. In Surah An-Najm there was a comparison between the Prophet's journey or Prophet's observations and what we interpreted as philosophy's observations or philosophy's journey. And there was a comparison between the two. Now came Surah Al-Abasa, and we briefly went over the verses and we said that they are in roughly 3 chunks. We talked about the first half of the first chunk. Let's remember the verses. Abasa wa tawalla an ja'ahu al-a'ma. He frowned and turned away because the blind man came unto him. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ لَعَلَّهُ يَزَّكَّى أَوْ يَذَّكَّرُ فَتَنْفَعَهُ الذِّكْرَى. What could inform you that he might not cleanse himself or take heed, and so the reminder might benefit him? أَمَّا مَنِ اسْتَغْنَى. As for him who thinks himself self-sufficient, فَأَنْتَ لَهُ تَصَدَّى. Unto him you pay regard. وَمَا عَلَيْكَ أَلَّا يَزَّكَّى. Yet it is not your responsibility if he does not cleanse himself. وَأَمَّا مَنْ جَاءَكَ يَسْعَى. But as for him who comes unto you with earnest purpose, with enthusiasm, وَهُوَ يَخْشَى. And has fear and awe, فَأَنْتَ عَنْهُ تَلَهَّى. From him you are distracted. And for this, we talked about who is blind, what does it mean to frown and turn away, what is the importance of this tazkiyah or zakah, being cleansed, being mentioned, what is it referring to? We talked about that. Then we talked about man istaghna, the one who is seeing himself as self-sufficient. We talked about who is that, who thinks themselves to be self-sufficient. And as we were discussing last week, so the person who is like putting a certain distance to the message, saying that, well, what I have is enough to me. I don't need revelation to really tell me anything. I don't see the need for that. And we talked about why one would turn towards such a person rather than the blind person. We talked about 2 different ways to read this. One is, in its historical context, literally a blind man came. But today we said, who is blind for us and who is this person? After him, I have an desire to follow rather than the other blind one, despite the blind one being enthusiastic to hear the message, yet this other guy is not really willing to listen. And then we said, what does the message tell me, by contrasting the two? And putting this right after Najm in revelational order, as it looks like it's again a continuation of comparison of the 2 paths, but in this case, from the point of view of the recipients. In one case, the recipient is willing to take message from the messenger. The other one says, I have mine, thank you, which means he found it from elsewhere. In the previous surah, it was in the lines of path of philosophy, saying that I can find my own truth. So from a different angle, I feel like the same topic is not being mentioned. Now, after this comes the concluding remark for the first chunk. كَلَّا إِنَّهَا تَذْكِرَةٌ فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَ. No, but verily, it is an admonishment, it's a reminder. فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَ. So therefore, let whosoever will pay heed to it. Let the one who wants to take lesson from it, take lesson from it. فِي صُحُفٍ مُكَرَّمَةٍ. On honored leaves. صُحُفٍ مُكَرَّمَةٍ. مَرْفُوعَةٍ مُطَهَّرَةٍ. Exalted, purified, or cleansed. made clean. مطهرة. بأيدي سفرة كرام بررة. By scribes noble and righteous. By the set down by scribes, by writers noble and righteous. It's an interesting and seemingly cryptic verses. So here I have two sets of questions. Again, كلا إنها تذكرة. Because in the previous portion, it mentioned dhikr twice. We quickly go back there. Was it? Yeah. أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى. So he's going to make remembrance over time. يذكر, like it's a verb in repetitive long time frame. فتنفعه الذكرى, and eventually going to benefit from the reminder. So that the تذكرة was mentioned there. But now كلا إنها تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره. Again, reminder comes here. Why is there this emphasis of reminder? What does it mean that something is being reminded? Birkan made a comment about this last week. Maybe we can remember it here. And then, what does it mean that فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَهُ? What does this tell us in the light of the previous two comparisons? This looks like a concluding sentence, but what does it tell me? What shall I do? Why is it speaking to me this way? Yes.
I'm thinking just because a reminder is given to you doesn't necessarily mean that it will be of benefit to you. But you actually think on it. So like Allah shows us so many signs, every day, but some people take them to be more profoundly. Some people take them to be signs from Allah. Other people are just going by their day and just not paying heed to them. So just because the reminder is there does not necessitate you being reminded.
So I need to pay attention to it, and then I'm going to benefit from it. And last week, Birkan was mentioning a point about this reminder, because something is reminded to you, like if I say, Atik, I shall remind you that you owe me $1 million. Atik would say, well, this is news to me. Like I didn't know about it. It's not a reminder. It's a news. So, but if Atik already knows that he owes me this much money and he's just slacking, not paying it, then it's going to be a reminder. So a reminder is done for something that you have some sort of a knowledge of it, or once you hear about it, you can relate to it. So Quran is a reminder. How do we put it there? Yes.
I think I'm also thinking of it from the perspective of how, like, the Quran isn't the first book of God. It is the last book of God. And a lot of the things that, are mentioned in the Quran even, or were practiced by the Muslims had already been a part of that culture and that religion, like, beforehand. And the Quran just sort of, like, renewed those things. And for some practices that were, for example, incorrect, the Quran came and corrected those. So in that way, I'm also thinking, it's a purification of Islam rather than the start of Islam.
Okay, like this is an acceptable answer in the larger scale of things. But for you, does this apply, for example? Is it that, oh, I first read Bible, I know something, and now it's correcting this, or updating this, or reminding me this, or, well, I haven't even read Bible, so this is the first book I took at my hand. So how is it that still this book is a reminder?
Primary book is the book of the universe.
The primary book is the book of universe. But there's a book out there, and then this book is reminding me of that other book. Okay, Atik made a comment and went away. Walaikum assalam. Atik, I guess we need to open it up a little bit. What do you mean that the book is, the primary book is universe?
I think we live life, we have lived experiences, and they're not for no reason. They're there to maybe tell us something. And the Quran is there to maybe remind us, like, hey, you missed, you didn't read it right. Go back and
I
take
see.
another look.
So Quran is going to attract my attention to something that I did or I am doing or I am experiencing and saying that, look, you remember you did this? So yeah.
Or even like more specific in my life, like when you grow up in like a Muslim country, a lot of people like to make everything haram. So everything is like, oh, like even if you're doing something a little bit, questionable, like for example, listening to music, they'll be like, oh, listening to music, that's haram. And then the Quran comes in and you read it and you're like, it's not talking about this. And then there's that verse that says, who told you that this is haram, or like who made things that Allah has made forbidden haram. And it makes you think, that what people have been saying, it's sort of a reminder to you or a purification of what you had been thinking Islam was versus what it actually is.
Okay. It's
So
a
it's actually
controversial
about-
comment, but okay. There's things to there. Okay. Agreeable and disagreeable. Let's take it. Good. So also there are signs within the heavens and yourselves. As Quran mentioned, they are signs within the creation and within yourselves. So, and Quran is reading those signs from the creation and from myself to me, saying, and actually we are going to see an example of this within a few following verses. It's going to tell me about how I am created. It's going to tell me about how, let's say, the rain is being created. So these are the things that are happening right there anyways. So attracting my attention to something that I already know, but I am maybe being neglectful or avoiding to think about and saying that, you remember this is happening, just turn your head, look outside of the window, you see that? So it's a reminder, meaning whatever it says, I read it, I hear it, and I say, I can confirm this. I agree with that. And this should be maybe contrasted with, like tadhkir here, reminder here, can be contrasted with ta'aleem, teaching. Quran talks about ta'aleem for human as well. Like allama. So اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So he teaches human with the pen. He teaches human that which he doesn't know. So the Creator talks about teaching as well. In here, talking about reminder. But when we were talking about this teaching part, this was the first surah we studied 2 years ago, around this time. Allama, what is it that human is taught? Then back then we referred back to the creation of human. And in there, Adam alayhi salam was taught names. And when we were understanding this, what does it mean that Adam alayhi salam was taught names? And we expanded it also on our Friday discussion a couple of weeks ago, meaning divine names are taught to human. Human can relate to mercy. Human can relate to knowledge. Human can relate to anger, perfection. All these are divine names. And you are given tools. When you see it, you recognize it. Like you're taught about it. By birth, you know what it means to be merciful. And once you smile at a baby, baby is smiling back at you. Where did the baby learn about this? So I am taught with, let's say, grace by birth. I know what it means. And when you shout at a baby, baby gets shocked. So baby is taught to be afraid. Baby is taught what it means to be mean, what it means to be kind. So these names are taught to human. If I ask the question, where did I learn this from? Somebody would say, well, it is a natural outcome of chance over billions of years. Quran says, no, it's not outcome of chance. It's taught to you, meaning I gave it to you by birth in your creation. This is given to you. But then comes reminder. Revelation comes and becomes a reminder for what I am potentially taught in my creation. So this is why Quran is reminding me something that which was taught to me as a human, those potentially I can appreciate these. فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَهُ, then let the one who wants to benefit from it, to benefit from it. Yes.
Sorry, I zoomed out a little. Were you also talking about fitness?
Fitrat.
Because that's another way this could be understood, because because of how, like, we say that potential to understand right, or to recognize what is right is within us. Like, man is born on fitra, but then he deviates from it when he starts to sin and all that. And
We
then
should run this for longer, or
Okay.
according to this picture, there are only two.
Okay, go ahead.
And then when you're reminded of what is right, your fitra sort of confirms it. So it could also be taken in that way.
Yeah, so your fitra is how you are created, or the potentiality is given to you. So but here with the previous part that I mentioned, it is given to you, it is taught to you. It's not, it didn't happen to be by chance. So ta'aleem in this case is the creator says, I gave it to you, not you acquired it by yourself, nor was it by chance. But when it comes to Quran, then it's a reminder, something that I was taught before. Now I am starting to make sense of it, or when the hint comes, I say, oh, it makes sense. So it's a reminder in this sense. But who benefits from the message? In the light of what was mentioned before, there were two attitudes. One of them was that person, and this is something that we didn't emphasize last week. وَأَمَّا مَنْ جَاءَكَ يَسْأَلُ وَهُوَ يَخْشَى, somebody who is in awe, like he comes in enthusiasm, and he is in awe. He has this khashya, like khashya is fear with awe. It's not like fear of freaking out, but fear in awe. Such a person is, as was being mentioned, how do you know that he's not going to benefit? But for the other person, despite this person being blind, could benefit, yet the other person who says, I am self-sufficient, that attitude will not lead to getting the message. So, فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَهُ, then let the one who is going to take it, take it. This also tells something for the person who makes da'wah, or who is inviting to the message, saying that you will just tell the message, you will just remind them. You cannot make them accept or reject, or make them benefit from the message. You cannot force them to remember. If Atik really owes me $1 million, and I say, Atik, $1 million, he says, which $1 million? Like, if he doesn't want to remember, he wouldn't remember. Like, because he doesn't want to explicitly remember it. So if he is a person who thinks that, yeah, I should pay this back, but he genuinely forgot, when I remind him, he will say, oh yeah, sorry, here is your $1 million. So then you do your duty. Like, what can you do? You are not at a position to make them remember. You can only remind. But making them remember is different than reminding. Inviting someone is different than giving them guidance. You are just a messenger. You just invite them. You don't guide them, which is also beautiful, because beautiful in multiple ways. One is, I might think that, or I am guiding people, which is risky. The other one is, I might take the burden on my shoulder, saying that it's not working out. Why they are not getting guided. So this is why it's really putting me in a nice spot of being an abd. Yeah.
But I guess I'm still confused, because, like, in my experience, like, I have tried to talk to people who are very biased towards one idea. For example, last year I was trying to talk to my family about, kafir, who is a kafir.
Mhm.
And I was talking to them about what we discussed in Surah Baqarah, where it's defining like all these attitudes. And they were like, yeah, but we still consider, the person like non-Muslims to be kafir. Like, yeah, we still consider. And it's such a dismissive attitude that it sort of makes you feel like because this person is so biased and they're not open to accepting the message or accepting the truth, you just don't want to talk to them about it. So I'm a bit confused because yes, guidance comes from God, but then it's like you do want to put in your effort with the people who do have the right sort of attitude. And I think this is also what it's saying, like go for the people who have fear and awe and who are actually looking for answers.
Mhm. Yeah. And in any case, you do not know, Assalamu alaikum, so you will invite both parties,
Mhm.
but whom are you going to follow up with more?
Mhm.
Because if the conversation, if that person says, I am good, I mean, I have enough of it, like, would you like to put more effort in there?
Mhm.
Because generally, putting more effort, now coming back to myself, where is it coming from? Is it from the fact that I think I will guide the guy, I'm going to guide that person? Or is it that I need to put more emphasis to the person because that person is important? Like both are problematic feelings. And it was highlighting this both aspects here. So,
Actually, this
Okay.
reminds me of a management class that I once took. And in there, they were like, my professor was talking about how managers tend to, spend more time on employees who aren't well performing, like who are lazy, who are slow. And they're basically like teaching us that it's not a good strategy to ignore the ones who are performing well because you want them to be more motivated and they're putting in more effort. So you should sort of reward that behavior. So
okay,
it's interesting to see it.
okay, that's good. So, what does the following 4 verses say? في صحف مكرمة مرفوعة مطهرة, on honored leaves. It's a reminder, it said, on honored leaves, exalted, purified, set down by scribes, noble and righteous. What does it mean that it is on honored leaves or honored pages, if you like? Suhuf can also be taken as pages. But on honored pages, what does that mean? Like the pages of Quran. And initially, Quran was not written on paper. I mean, Quran being compiled as mushaf happened later on. But even in the earliest times, it was being written on, let's say, pieces of leather and whatnot. But it's leather, like it's not honored sheet of, I don't know what it means really to have an honored sheet or honored leaf. But في صحف مكرمة, what is that? It's a mukarram page. مرفوعة مطهرة, exalted, purified. What does that mean? That Quran is purified and elevated. What does it mean? Quran being elevated, or this reminder being elevated. What is the opposite of it? Like, why is such an emphasis in there? Is it just the speaker in here, is he just trying to exaggerate how important or whatever the word is, or what am I supposed to get out of that? And then there's a mentioning of the scribes. Is this talking about the definitely not talking about the people who were the first people who wrote them on paper, because in tafsirs they say this refers to the angels. But what does it mean that angels writing this message either? Because message is spoken. Like if we think about it this way, or message was carried by Jibreel alayhi salam to prophet. And again, it was, as we understand, sort of a speech. What does it mean that this speech is written? And how can I relate to that? I'm looking for a relatable answer, of course. Yes, Dua.
I was not thinking of it that way. I think I was just thinking it like coming back from the previous verse, like it's highlighting the importance of the Quran by calling it like honored leaves, exalted, purified. And I think it's also describing the attitude of the people who will pay heed to it. So they're the ones who are, writing it on the leaves and, like thinking of it as so important that they need to write it down and read it over and over to be reminded by it and to take reminder from it. So I think it's maybe talking about and encouraging that attitude.
Maybe. Yes, sorry.
I guess the reminder being on like these leaves or pages and like being written reminds me of like a book, I guess. So how we were talking about like sort of reading like with the initial revelation, like reading our lives like in the name of Allah, like as a book that has meaning, and I guess maybe the fact that it's like elevated and purified could also point to the fact that there's an important like meaning in my life that I need to read and that I need to be reminded of, so that like I don't just like fall into this attitude of like things in the creation are meaningless or events in my life are aren't meaningful in that way. So maybe like pointing back to the idea of like reading the existence as a book.
Okay, very good, very beautiful. So this one takes me to another verse where the Creator says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. So again, the word in there is karamna. So indeed, we honored the son of Adam. So in there, human is mentioned as Kareem. Another word Kareem that I remember is being mentioned for Ibrahim alayhi salam, for example. Actually, Yusuf alayhi salam, Kareem ibn Kareem ibn Kareem. So he is Kareem, son of Kareem, son of Kareem. So a prophetic example is being mentioned as somebody honored. So, and now Quran is mentioning this reminder is being written on honored pages. And if we take the creation as a book, which is, and Quran is the interpreter of this book of universe, in a sense, the signs in Quran are written on the pages of the universe. Like what do we do generally? If you see a verse of Quran written on a piece of paper and thrown on the ground, on the floor, what do? You take it high because you know that this is a valuable message, so you would like to elevate it to demonstrate its importance to you. Otherwise, Quran being on the floor, Quran being on the sky, like this page, it's relative to you, it means something. Otherwise, it being up or down, like your neighbor's Quran living downstairs is under you. So is this making Quran lesser or lower? Like in your neighbor puts it above a certain place, but definitely it's under your feet, not even under your belly. But relative to your neighbor, and you are not aware of this Quran being there, you're not making any disgrace towards Quran in this case. The idea is, I do see the importance of this message. This is why I am elevating it. So in my eyes, is the creation such valuable, as Zareen was saying? Every event in my life is such a sign. Do I see it as a sign, as a reminder from my Creator? If I see it as such, I'm going to see it elevated. Otherwise, I'm going to see it as some random act. And where did this come from? Oh, I'm very unlucky today, I would say. It's going to be something despicable. But if I realize that it is coming from my Creator, then it's a different thing. Like, for example, if Abir comes and gives a, poke to Atik, Atik will get angry, saying that, why are you poking me? But if Atik's sheikh comes and just pokes Atik, Atik will say, oh, he's just making me vigilant. He's warning me. He's telling me something. And he would turn towards the sheikh and say, well, what's it about? Was I driving too fast, my red car? So he would take it as a elevated message rather than an annoying poke, right? His brother can annoy him. So it's not an elevated message for him. But if the message comes from the creator, then the meaning of it changes. Although it is the same act, the meaning changes. So في صحف مكرمة in this case, like things, do I see the pages of the universe as كريم, مكرم, honored? I would see it as such if and only if I see them as writings of my creator. Is the creation writings of my creator? Because Quran is interpreting that. If you look at with this lens, then you will find ants, for example, to be like those insignificant creatures under my feet. They are going to be pages, mukarram, honorable pages to me. So much so honorable that Quran is going to mention them in its pages. Quran mentions ants. Quran mentions bees. These are very seemingly insignificant creatures. Or even Quran gives the example of a mosquito or a fly, like something despicable or something that I would like to kill the whole time. Quran says it is a honorable page. A mosquito is an honorable page. Pay attention what your creator has written on it for you. Fly is an honorable page. A disease is an honorable page. So these reminders are written on them for those who wants to pay attention. Let the one who wants to take from it, take from it. Zareen, there's something there?
I was just gonna say, so then do I let the mosquitoes like bite me, or like even if I see them, try to see them as honorable, like there is also an aspect of harm maybe that I see. Like if I learn that they carry such and such disease, like the disease might have like this honorable position as a sign. It has this like order, like even a disease has order to it, but that doesn't mean I want to get the disease. So.
Yeah, I mean, reading means reading it properly. Like if a lion is attacking you, you wouldn't say, oh, how cute it is. Like it's carrying you another message saying that, well, now it's time for you to protect what is entrusted to you, which is your life. And here I am to remind you of that. Let me see if you are going to be mindful of your position as the protector of this. Yet this shouldn't mean that I'm going to kill the lion. I mean, there are ways for sure, like sometimes you have to kill and whatnot. It's a separate, I mean, details. But how do I read this sign? And interestingly, for mosquito, Nursi's interpretation for that says, wouldn't it be nice to read mosquitoes as hijama, making hijama to you? Like hijama is this cupping, they say. You know, they do cupping. They take blood, small blood samples. I mean, if you would like to read it as such, you can read it as such too. Like, I mean, of course, some mosquitoes leave disease to you, but not all of them. But still, they're annoying. And I don't know if Maryam is here. And her request, oh, she's not here. Oh, yeah, she's there. Okay. Well, maybe I shouldn't put it on record. Yeah, I just poisoned the mosquitoes in our backyard. I have to let it. Okay. Yes.
So since we're talking about the creation and the universe being the exalted leaves, then who are the scribes then?
Say it again.
Who are the scribes if we are talking about
Yeah.
the universe and the creation and all these?
Then who are the scribes of these بأيدي سفرة كرام بررة, noble and righteous scribes? Then I can read it as angels, because I would say that every conscious being, they themselves, like your life becomes a book and you're a page, you're being written, and you're a conscious observer of what is being done over you. So here, scribes, noble and righteous, the angels are being, we talked about this in Surah An-Najm, being message bearers for me. Because if I take, let's say, an ant as a page, what does it become? The ant becomes like a messenger to me. Because on this page, like a letter, because messenger means somebody who brings you a message. This page is becoming a messenger, bringing me a message from my maker. So ant is a messenger, but I can take it as just the body of the ant. But apart from the material body of it, there is a conscious message in there, a meaningful message in there. So this is what we were discussing when talking about Surah An-Najm. In this existence, consciousness is everywhere. It's not only Atiq that is conscious, because we only feel like animals are conscious, humans are conscious, not the plants, not the stones. But now, if I read it with this lens, stones are meaningful pages. But is it only me who is reading the page? How about the stone itself? Is it not reading itself? And when I have a conversation or listen something from the stone, listen to something from the ant, listen to something from an accident, where do I hear it from? This is the understanding of angels. As I am having a conversation with Atiq, and I say that it's not the flesh and bones that I'm communicating with, but there's a conscious being somewhere in there which I am having a conversation with. So reading it the other way around, the existence is all conscious. Everywhere is filled up with conscious beings in the language of Quran, malaika, angels, and with them, through them, having a conversation with them, I hear these messages. So it's a beautiful way to look at the existence now. It's not only us alone in this existence who is recognizing or being aware of things. And yes.
Can you understand messages as instead invitations?
Invitations, reminders, invitations,
Yeah.
invitation. Would you like to expand?
Depending on, what the appearance of the invitation, you can understand where it is calling you to. So if it is exalted and honorable, then it must be leading you to somewhere that is exalted and honorable.
Good. Jazakallah khair. So for Marfu'atin, I have another thing to say, like the exalted. But since Mustafa made a comment, I would like to miss this. He is quoting to a verse, رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة فيها كتب قيمة. This was from which surah?
Surah Bayina.
Bayina, okay. And I pulled up another from Surah Al-Waqiyah, again talks about mutahhara. So the one that Mustafa mentions is talking about mutahhara and kutubun qayyimah. So similar meanings. And I'm going to take you to this portion from Surah Al-Waqiyah. I started a few verses before, just to give a context, but the portion I'm going to focus is at the end. I swear by the places of the stars, وَإِنَّهُ لَقَسَمٌ لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَظِيمٌ, and this is indeed a mighty oath, if only you knew. إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ, indeed, this indeed is a noble Quran. فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ, in a book well guarded. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, which none but the pure may touch. تنزيل من رب العالمين, a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. So now this is talking about only the pure, the clean ones can touch it. This is one. Okay, keep that in mind. And it's saying that it's a well-protected book. In the previous part, it was saying that marfu'at mutahhara, it is an elevated and clean book. And the verse that Mustafa quoted, yatlu suhufan mutahhara, so that Rasul min Allah, the Prophet from Allah, is reading tilawa, suhufan mutahhara, so cleansed or clean papers. Fiha kutubun qayyimah, and it is in a qayyim. Would you translate the strong, Mustafa? Qayyimah, kutubun qayyimah. in a book
Valuable.
Yeah, valuable.
valuable. قيمة. Okay, so it's mentioning a book, but again here talking about صحف مطهرة, clean pages. So what is it that Quran is clean? Only clean one can touch it. It's well protected. What does this mean? And we take wudu before reading Quran, and we say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم before reading Quran. These should have a lot related. Like these symbolic things we do must have a lot to do with the cleanliness of Quran or cleanliness of this reminder. What does this mean? Because even when it comes to cleanliness, the Turkish version of cleanliness means you have to really, really wash. But for other culture, it's just going to be like you just put your wet hand over your socks and you're good. Like, and it's from Sharia point of view, it's cleaning. Like you don't need to go crazy with washing with, I don't know, a perfect drinkable water. So, which means this cleansing has something to do more than just bodily cleaning itself. So what does that mean? Yeah.
I think with the part, in terms of like the attention you have, I feel like whenever I do it, like, you know, I learned it watches your sins and all these things. And also it's like, okay, now I know I'm going to pray, or now I know I'm in a state where I could pray, or I can read Quran. So more like heart-centered cleaning.
Heart-centered cleaning. And in this context, very beautifully, in this context then, because we are talking about two attitudes. One, the first attitude was, despite being blind, has khashya and has desire to take the message. But the other one is saying that I am enough, I am self-sufficient. I know. I don't need reminder because I know. The second attitude is, I don't need reminder because I know. Yeah, dua.
I'm also thinking of how we start with Al-Billah and then Bismillah. So we start off with asking, first of all. So we recognize that we are not self-sufficient. We are asking to be protected from shaitan. And then the second is we say Bismillah. So in the name of Allah, I'm reading this not for myself.
Yes.
Purifying the nafs, it's like ego, like everything that we attribute to ourselves is like egocentric. So I think it's all about like purifying your nafs and having that right viewpoint about things.
So then the dirt here was, because the tazkiyah came before, but the dirt was the guy was what? Mustaghni, so he was self-sufficient, thinking that he is self-sufficient in terms of knowledge, maybe, but also in terms of your life. I might be feeling like if you want to be successful, you have to work hard. Your hard work will bring you success. This is a dirty conclusion. Like if you ask enough from your creator, if his wisdom requires you're going to be successful is a separate thing. If you work hard, you will become successful as much is a separate and dirty conclusion. So before sitting before Quran, cleansing myself, then it seems to be important. Because to the extent of my cleanliness, I'm going to start benefiting from Quran. Because really, I am conditioning myself. This is a very important part. What you take from Quran is related to what you come with. If you come with a certain luggage of, oh, I know this much, then what you're going to take out of Quran is going to be as little. But if I say, I'm cleansing myself from my false claims, then maybe I can start taking something from Quran. So, but I would like to mention here, لا يمسها إلا المطهرون. Nobody other than the clean ones can touch it. What does this mean? What does it mean to touch Quran? And only the clean ones can touch it. What does this mean? Like dirty ones, cannot they touch Quran? But who are the dirty ones? Yeah.
Like an additional question. We talked about in certain Najm about avoiding like purifying oneself.
Mhm.
So I was just like wondering how that relates to sort of coming to the Quran with like a pure, like maybe like this clean, like attitude, I guess.
Yeah.
So is it that we aren't even like the source of like this purification, like we need to be to ask to be purified in like both
Yeah.
situations?
So when we were discussing this tazkiyah, we mentioned فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, so do not cleanse yourselves. But then another verse, it says قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, whomever cleanse or purifies it. So it looks like purification is possible, but claiming to be pure is wrong. Or trying to claim that, no, I didn't do anything wrong, is wrong. Yet, I will try to get rid of these false claims. So keep blaming this nafs, because nafs is the source of these neediness, this wrongness. This is where I'm going to be. But cleanliness is what I'm trying to attain by this attitude. But I will never claim to be the clean or the pure one because it's now going to go against the idea of purification itself. So for this, nobody other than the clean can touch it, as well as marfu'a. I'm going to talk about this in conjunction with what we discussed in Surah An-Najm of the two paths. One path was the prophetic journey. The other path was the path of philosophy, which says we don't need revelation, we can find truth by ourselves. These are the two journeys, right? And in Surah An-Najm, the prophetic journey was an ascension. It was going up. This is very valuable of a metaphor, going up. Why? Because what I'm trying to reach is not within the thing itself. When we were mentioning this, we talked about like in the horizontal relationships, I say, oh yes, cell multiplies a second cell, 4 cells, 8 cells. This is a horizontal relationship, and it doesn't explain anything. But if I say, yeah, this cell refers to its maker, its creator, this is a vertical relationship. So ascension means read the book and see what the book says about its author. What is the purpose of the author? A horizontal relationship in this case would be you look one letter, or you say, oh, it's followed by an A, followed by a B, and it's inside such a paragraph. This is a horizontal relationship, right? So a vertical relationship is you are going from out of the, as we meant before, to the sama. So you are elevating, you are raising your head to read where the true message is. Quran is elevated. The message of Quran is not on earth. Do not try to find the answers within the things themselves. The message, the purpose is beyond the things themselves. Like, oh, why did Qadir look at me like this? If I do it like this, I'm trying to understand, solve the problem on the horizontal relationship. But if I say, what does my creator mean by creating me in a way that Qadir treated me in this way? Now I am lifting my head above and saying that this is being part of a creation. Why did my creator allow this to happen? Okay, Qadir willed something. Qadir's will is to Qadir. But my creator also willed it. What is his message? This is what matters more. Except this is what matters. The rest doesn't matter. So the message of Quran is at high. It's not on the horizontal relationship of things that I get stuck with. Why is that important? I'm going to take it back to our previous conversation. What does Quran say about sun? It says it's a lamp. Siraja wahaja. It sounds very primitive of an explanation, isn't it? Like, look at the sciences, how it explains the sun. It gives me its radius. It talks about how many black spots are there. It tells me about its age, its mass, its volume, everything. But when it comes to Quran, the description of Quran might sound very childish, as if science is telling us something very elevated. Quran is speaking very simple and fundamental or basic, just for children. But what matters, though? The meaning of sun is that it is a lamp, and it's a lamp which is being maintained by someone who wants you to stay enlightened. The purpose of sun is being brought to you from the point of view of its maker. This is the purpose of sun. Like in my relationship with Qadir, I say, why did Qadir do it like this? Frowned to me and whatnot, right? I am getting stuck with unnecessary details. But the actual purpose that I was being created in here was, maybe my creator was saying or reminding me a certain thing with this interaction. This is what matters. If somebody comes and gives perfect detail of, oh, when he frowned, he moved this eyebrow, this muscle moved, those neurons fired, all these details, and give me a perfect description, physical description of Qadir's attitude, and give it a name from psychology and say that Qadir is a psychopath or something, I don't know, just to make you laugh. Okay, doesn't matter, because the main point of me being created in this situation was my creator is telling me something. If then the prophet comes or the revelation comes and says, this is made to you so that you realize that there is a merciful creator, there is a knowledgeable creator, whatever that event meant, all the rest would be so low, and the single sentence explanation of it would be so elevated, because this is the real message of it. We should question ourselves. Which one do I elevate? Which is more elevated in my eyes? Is this super scientific jargon laden explanation, or Quran's simple yet so valuable explanation about sun? So Quran is elevated. Do I see it as such? So it's saying that this reminder to you is much more elevated. But in contrast to the two guys, one of them was saying that I am self-sufficient. If I take it before revelation, today, well, we have science, we would say. And we don't need like those mythology from 14 centuries ago. We know better. Quran now comes and says, no, what is here is elevated, meaning what you have is not elevated. What you have is so lowly, which should shake me and question, is it really? But not taking it for granted. Yeah, of course, Quran is the highest because we are Muslim. Not like that. Is it really? Do I really see, for example, sun being mentioned? And examples will come right after this verse. Creation of human will come, and then rain being sent and vegetation being created is going to be given as an example from a Quranic lens. Is it going to be, will I see it as an elevated explanation, or is it going to be a simple for childish explanation for, like Quran is not talking to, Quran is talking to everybody, so everybody should understand. This is why it's talking so low language. Is this the case? Or no, Quran, this is the best way to communicate purpose. Quran is really making the reminder to the proper point. I need to convince myself about that. And this is important for ourselves because we are, at least I am, living in an environment in which we have this, or I have this inferiority complex. Like cooler guys are out there with those nice titles and I don't know, fancy clothing and everything. Like I feel like I'm a loser among them. And whenever they say they are speaking so confident and they have the answers apparently. And what I have is like, sun is a lamp. Sounds very, I don't know. So, and in this, and of course, nobody, if I say sun is a lamp, people will mock me, laugh at me. But when somebody puts a lot of jargon in there and they're going to be, wow, such and such professor mentioned what the sun is, and now we know what sun is, how do I feel? I cannot simply say, oh, no, we are Muslim, we have to be strong. Okay, in words, that sounds fine. But still, when I go to department and none of Muslim friends are around, I'm by myself again. I'm going to feel lonely in there. I'm not going to be as strong. Do I see Quran as elevated? do I see that it is written on honorable pages? Do I see the sun as an honorable page? Do I see the end as an honorable page? Yes.
Another message that I'm taking from this is that I shouldn't take the Quran for granted. Like, it's not that those leaves or those pages in and of themselves are cool or, you know, very like elevated, but it's that they receive the honor by virtue of the Quran being written on them. So similarly, I'm thinking, you know, if I get invited by Allah to read the Quran, to open the Quran, to check a verse, you know, to recite it, I should not think of it, I should not be ungrateful about it or be mindless about it, but I should feel blessed and feel honored, and I should thank God for giving me that opportunity and that invitation.
Good, very good. I mean, we are short of time, but I feel like there's a very beautiful lesson that Imam Mursi was taking from here. He has a very interesting metaphor, which I'm feeling like is driven from these verses. But he puts in a very interesting context, which I remember mentioning here. But I'll just give a glimpse of it. Maybe we can discuss it next week. So he says one day he was in one of the mosques in Istanbul, and he was listening to some Hufaz, like who memorized Quran. And he said, I heard a whisper as if, and the whisper said, you think the Quran is so elevated? Just be impartial. Just take it as if it's a speech of man. Are you still going to see the light you see in Quran? Says, for a moment, I fell for that trick, and I listened to the Quran as if it is speech of man. Says, as if the light of this mosque was to be turned and everywhere would go dark. At this moment, all the light of the Quran disappeared. Then he said, well, then I noticed that there's something fishy going on. This is Satan who is tricking me. And then I'm going to make ista'adah or ask for help from Quran, and started defending, he says. And he starts his very interesting defense in there, starts by saying, you said being impartial. Impartial means in between the two, but you're asking me to be on the side of the opposite and take it as speech of man. This is not impartiality. This is accepting just the opposite. So how just is that? Then Satan says, okay, you're right. Then be impartial. Say it neither speech of God nor speech of man. Then Mursi says, well, this is not possible either. Because if the two things are here, then I can judge what is in between them. But what is the distance between speech of man and speech of God? Where is the middle point? One is an absolute speech, the other one is a limited human speech. Where is the middle? There's no middle. You cannot be impartial in such a position. Then what are you going to do? He says, in this case, we have to take it at the position that it is, which is more worthy. And then if the other side can prove otherwise, we will take it down. So Quran is high and elevated, rightfully speech of creator. Then if the other side, which claims that it is speech of man, can disprove this claim, then I will take it serious. So puts Quran at an elevated position. Elevated position being, it must be speech of God. This is where initial position needs to be, he says. It's a very interesting, long conversation, and very important, because this is, if you read especially the Western perspective of Quran, you will see that they take it as speech of Muhammad, or not only Muhammad. Well, he and they say, well, what was his name? Waraqah bin Nawfal taught him and whatnot. So they say, well, Muhammad was a good person, but he, like those Bedouins were beasts, so he wanted to teach them, train them. So he used this sort of allegorical language. How come? Is it really possible? Now you are taking it down to the level of human beings, although Quran itself is claiming that it's speech of God. So this is not being impartial. It's just accepting the opposite. You cannot be impartial either. So elevated in here was used as, it is at the level of speech of creator. It's not at the level of speech of man. And there's a huge distinction between them. Actually, there's an infinite distance between speech of man versus speech of creator. And same thing applies to the creation too. Is this plant over there a making of chance, or is it a making of all-wise creator? Because if it is a honored page of the creator, now it's such an elevated creature. But if I take it as an outcome of random chance, then no value at all. It just happened to be something by chance. Is it valuable? No. Again, the distinction between creation of creator versus outcome of chance is so different. Another example for what it means that it's an elevated page. In your eyes, in my eyes, applies to both. Where is Quran? Is it speech of God or is it speech of man? In my eyes, the creation, is it creation of all-wise creator and absolute creator, which makes it valuable, or is it just outcome of chance? It just happens to be. So this elevation in this sense is actually super important. It's not just some fancy word to describe Quran here. It doesn't simply mean that put Quran on the higher shelves or above your bellies. I mean, we do put Quran above bellies and put it in high, you see those framed verses in there. But this is a sign that I see its elevatedness, and to signify it, I put it there. Not that the page, whichever it is being written on, literally becomes, I don't know, somehow more worthy or something. But its value comes from its connection to its meaning. And as a significance of it, as a reminder of it, I put it high in there. It has a symbolic value. So that's why this, yeah.
What's the word where exalted? Which one is it?
So marfu'a in here they say exalted, but marfu'a is more like elevated.
Okay.
So like irtifa, this is like the plane is in higher elevation, irtifa is used. So marfu'a, I think.
Well, has the dhamma in it?
Oh yeah, marfu'a with who? Yeah. So it is elevated and it is clean. And only the clean ones can touch it. Now becomes, then there are those who are unclean, which in our example now of going back to Surah An-Najm, those who are dealing with only the lowly relations among things. In my interpretation so far, student of philosophy, who is only dealing with how this cell makes this other cell, or fancies that one cell makes the other. How come such a person who got stuck with so low of a perspective will challenge the meaning which looks to so high? Somebody who got stuck with the muscles of Qadir's face and his psychology and this and that, and revelation comes and explains me the purpose behind it. I mean, maybe it was a bad example, but let's talk about mother's mercy. Somebody is going to come and say that mother's mercy is there because of such hormone and this and this and that, and will give lectures about it. And Quran will come, the Rasul will come and say that it is a glimpse of mercy of your creator. This is what mother's mercy mean. So how come that somebody, no, it's not. Like a professor of I don't know, hormones will come and say, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's all about those hormones. How come their comment can put any blame, their dirty hands? How come that it's going to reach or touch the elevated meaning that the Quran is teaching me? And in my eyes also, if a professor of hormonology, let me put it this way, I don't know, there should be a proper name for that, so endocrinologists come and tell me, give me a lecture about how, not why, how mom is merciful towards the child. Is it going to dirty my understanding of this is nothing but mercy of my creator? It has nothing to do with the endocrine system that you're mentioning. It might be an outcome of the same creator, but it's not going to dirty my understanding of my merciful creator in there. It cannot touch it. I mean, forget about being an equal answer or anything. It's not even going to put a dirt on my conviction of the beauty of the message on the same thing. It is mercy of my creator. I have no doubt about it. I wouldn't even pay attention to this, the guy who is self-sufficient and turning away from Quranic message. I wouldn't pay attention to the guy. I would say, well, this is the message. This is the purpose of it. You don't know what you're talking about, I would say. So this is why none other than the clean ones can touch Quran. What they say in the same realm about Quranic message is insignificant. This is what it means. They cannot even touch it. Any concluding remarks? No questions, comments? So, fi kitabin maknoon, in a book well guarded. Quran is well guarded. What does this mean? Quran says, well, come and challenge if you can. It's well guarded because it is backed by the truth itself. The creator is challenging what I did, like as if it is saying that like some companies produce a product and say lifetime guarantee. The Quran says lifetime guarantee. It's well guarded. Why? I made it. I made it so intact. It's so strong. I am so confident in it. I mean, you and your apparent knowledgeable people, what you say is nothing but lies compared to the truth in here. Inshallah, next week we will continue from this second chunk of verses. Now the language is changing and starting to talk with قُتِلَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا أَكْفَرَهُ. Accursed be men, accursed be men. How ungrateful is he? And or how stubbornly covers up the truth is he? مِنْ أَيِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَهُ. From what thing does he create him? مِنْ نُطْفَةٍ خَلَقَهُ فَقَدَّرَهُ. From a drop of seed he created him and proportioned him. ثُمَّ السَّبِيلَ يَسَّرَهُ. Then made the way easy for him. ثُمَّ أَمَاتَهُ فَأَقْبَرَهُ. Then caused him to die and buried him. ثُمَّ إِذَا شَاءَ أَنْشَرَهُ. Then when he will, he brings him again to life. كَلَّا لَمَّا يَقْضِ مَا أَمَرَهُ. No, but man has not done what he commanded him. Inshallah, next week we will start from here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.